All right, welcome in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 7 a.m. Wednesday, October 15th, right here on Jocks. Stephen Pearl, Auburn head basketball coach, going to join us at 7:30 this morning before he makes the rounds at SEC Basketball Media Days. That went yesterday. That will go again today. And so we'll get a little bit of basketball discussion here in the 7 o'clock hour as that is going to get going here this week. College basketball season is among us. It is here. The Penn State rumors begin to float around. We'll discuss their head coaching position, how that's going to look, where that's going to go. Dodgers beat the Brewers last night. GMAC, they lead the series 2-0. You get Toronto-Seattle tonight at 7:08. Seattle leads that series 2-0 on FS1, which is a little surprising to me that that's going to be on that network. But, okay.
I'm with you. But then again, you got to boost some cable numbers. And plus, it's all in the bundle now. And it's also, remind me who's playing again? Toronto? Yeah, that'll do it. It's a Canadian team. They don't care about, they're not going to rate. It doesn't work.
It's
like
the ALCS still.
The TSN numbers do not factor into the rating. When you get the Canadian teams, that's why the NHL numbers are always so, they're not real. They're way better than what you realize because the Canadian markets don't subscribe to Nielsen. So it's a little bit tricky, but that's why they put it on FS1. It makes sense to do it that way. That way they're not covering up a big Fox deal and that would cost them more money and things like that. So that's why they did it. But yeah, basically if that's Yankees, Mariners, or Rays, Mariners, it's probably on Big Fox.
Rays definitely rate. So that would make sense.
Well,
be understandable.
At least they factor into the rating system.
All right, college football last night. We get college football tonight. It is that time of year, 49 straight days of football. A little bit of a surprise last night with FIU. They get the 3-3, take out Western Kentucky, who goes to 5-2, 25-6 last night. Keon Jenkins, 17-25, 184 yards and a touchdown. Kajon Owens, 22 carries, 195 yards for FIU. I know a lot of folks don't keep up with those teams, but Western Kentucky was looking pretty good this year. FIU was not having a great year up to this point. That's a big win. Arkansas State sneaks past South Alabama last night down in Mobile.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was. South goes to 1-6, 0-3 in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State 3-4, 2-1 in the Sun Belt. Jalen Rayner, 29-45, 209 yards and a touchdown for the Red Wolves. And Liberty takes out New Mexico State 30-27 at home. Liberty now kind of starting to come into their own a little bit under Jamie Chadwell. Keep in mind, they had lost 3 straight, and there was some discussion at 1-4, about do we maybe make a move here? Is this the right guy?
Yeah.
Now they've won 2 in a row. So maybe starting to figure things out. The Flames looking maybe a little bit better than some people thought they were going to be.
Do you think that's still
on the table?
Yeah.
No, I think for now he has shelved it, and you'll wait and see how the rest of the season goes. You're not necessarily going to say that right this second because now they've won a couple in a row, see if they can put it together, and a couple injuries probably got them, and we'll see where that heads. Tonight, 6 o'clock, ESPN, Delaware at Jacksonville State. So if you want to head over to Amherst Stadium in Jacksonville, Alabama, you can check that game out. Jacksonville State's at 3-3, 2-0 in CUSA play. That's 6 o'clock on ESPN, 6 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. You get UTEP at 1-5 at Sam Houston State at 0-6. Somebody has to win that game.
I've been told
someone
that
will
you
win the game.
Have to win.
Sam
that
Houston
helps.
looking for the first one of the year. Do they get it tonight? UTEP 2.5-point favorite on the road.
I'm going to take UTEP.
You don't just roll into Shell Energy Stadium.
The Shell Dog?
And just think you're going to run through Sam Houston. It's not how it works.
It's harder than that. Or so I've been told.
The UTEP hadn't rolled into many stadiums and won this year.
Oh,
so
my.
They're 1-5.
What's wrong with you?
They're 1-5 on the season. I don't know how else to say
what's wrong with you?
Let's begin to look at some of the games coming up this weekend. We get Alabama and Tennessee. I'm interested to hear from you, and we got it last year, of course, but for the longest time, this game with Heupel at the helm,
yes,
it was Coach Saban's defense, and that defense that had morphed a little bit, but had been there for so long, and how are you going to handle some of the overhangs? Obviously, Kane runs his in a little bit of a different fashion.
Mm-hmm.
How better, worse suited is his structure for this particular offense, in your opinion? let's take the personnel out of it. Let's take who's going to be up front, who's going to be in coverage, just the structure of it. Do you like its chances more against Josh Heupel's style of offense or less against his style of offense?
It's a great question because I want to say I like it more because it's simpler. There's less communication and against the tempo. I think that's always a value. So I'd say more, but I also get a little bit concerned about how involved the safeties are going to have to be and have been the last couple of weeks in run support, and how you're going to naturally in run support leave a couple guys on islands on the outside against quality personnel at wide receiver. Like, that's the only thing that I think makes me a little uncomfortable about the whole deal.
The vision coverage aspect of it, I go back and forth on should that be better, should that be worse here? Because I do think that some of the things that got the Saban-style defense in trouble were essentially that conflict defender and having to make that choice of where the extra man's going to go.
Correct.
I think it feels like Kane Womack's defense being more traditionally in zone, being able to play more in space should help you a little bit there. You don't have to make those decisions as definitively as you did before. I can recall having those conversations with Pete Golding, and later in his tenure at Alabama, him saying, we're not playing that game anymore.
Right.
We're either going to be in the box or we're going to be out wide over the receivers. We're going to make that decision of where that extra defender goes, and then we just got to play it that way. It feels like, just based on at its core how it's run, that this Kane Womack style defense should be a little bit more beneficial against this style offense. Like you said, you have more guys that don't necessarily need to be lined up in an exact spot when the ball is snapped, so therefore the tempo shouldn't affect you as much.
Well, the only issue I would have with that is, yes, there is less conversation. Nick Saban's defense is really complex with the pattern matching and the principles and the communication required. But what makes Nick Saban's defense struggle from time to time is when you build bunches, build stacks, motion across the formation, change the passing strength. That's when that becomes challenging. If you look at Tennessee, for example, they're 12% motion. It's one of the lowest rates in the country. So they play at tempo, and they don't have a lot of oddball formations. Like, it's pretty simple. I mean, they do get in some condensed stuff. They do build some bunches, but it's mostly on third down. You can kind of see it coming. They don't have a ton of options. They basically create a lot of picks and rubs. It's a very simple system. But I do think that against Nick Saban's style, it was a little bit more challenging on a defense like that. But then again, we've only had one sample size of Kane Womack against this defense. I'm sure there'll be others at some point. Naturally, this weekend is one. Maybe there's others of him defending this style of defense at other places, but I don't remember. I mean, maybe he did. Everyone does some semblance of this, but I would probably say it's a better system now to defend it, but I can't say that with great confidence, if you want me to be completely honest.
Right. It's going to be an intriguing game because I think, and once again, this was similar last year, but I feel like Tennessee staying dedicated to the physicality portion of their offense. Like, you go back to last week, and the defense will be a different conversation. I thought Miles Kitselman had a great game for Tennessee last week. And I thought Lance Hurd had one of his best games, maybe his best game as a Tennessee Volunteer. Now, he hasn't had a lot of great games. He's had some good games. He's been out of the lineup a little bit.
Yeah.
But I thought last week may have been his best game. And we'll talk to Austin Price, who covers Tennessee at 9:20 today. But that physical portion is the one that is a little bit different. So now you have to sit back and say, you're probably leaning a little bit more to that extra defender being closer to the line of scrimmage, where in the past, where it's super tempo, really up speed, push the ball down the field even more, you're dedicating that defender either out wide or back. And so I'll be interested to see how he plays it, because I think physically this team for Tennessee, this offense specifically for Tennessee, Greg, they're as capable physically as any offense I've seen Heupel have. And that is Bishop getting downhill in the run game, following blocks. I mean, he's not Dylan Sampson, but he runs in a similar fashion to him as pressing the line of scrimmage, being patient with blocks. Some of the times I just don't think he's as explosive. But they've got the bonus bigs. They've got an offensive line that can move you a little bit. I think this offensive line is a little more technically sound than last year's. Last year's was just kind of, they were just bullies. They wanted to fight you on almost every play. And you got them in trouble sometimes. They were penalized for that a lot. But that's the portion that I want to see is how does Alabama – because you look at Missouri and, the run yards were there. But this is just a different style of stopping the run than what you faced a week ago.
Well, I think this is a very different style. I also think with the pullers and some of the things that they try to attack you in the alleys, I think it does become challenging. I'm not the biggest fan of Joey Aguilar, but I've liked what I've seen. I think he's done a good enough job. He's not a real threat as a runner, which does make things a little bit easier. Last year, Nico Iamaleava was always a threat to run, which is a problem. However, Nico Iamaleava, not really a threat to hit anything downfield. So if you get beat over the top, no problem. I think Bama matches up pretty well. If you want me to be honest, I think they match up pretty well. But I also think Tennessee, if they get a beat in the alleys and they're running in the alleys, which is where I would attack Bama, that's when things can become real problematic. I also don't know who is the pass rusher that would scare me if I were Tennessee, that I need to be aware of if I were Tennessee. I think Tennessee can probably sit back there, and if they want to get Kitzelman out, by all means, go for it. You want to get in their two-back stuff where he's kind of lined up in a wing alignment off and inside. You want to do that? That's fine. You can do it. That's short yard stuff. You don't really need to. It's like you need to help with protection. So I don't know. I think it's a great game. I'm really looking forward to it. And
are you surprised at the number?
I'm not. Part of why I'm not surprised with it is because I think Alabama is a little bit more I watched them get gashed a couple times by Arkansas. There are a couple gashes there, and I am not a fan of Arkansas's offensive line. Are you?
It was the best I've seen them play all year. I will say that.
Okay, well,
they haven't been great most of the season, and I kind of gave my explanation of it on Monday, and I felt like Tim Banks overreacted a little bit to Taylor Green. If you really go kind of dive into that. And then that's where some things opened up inside. They have great backs. I mean, we've both admitted it on the show. And I felt like there was an overreaction to the edges, and then Arkansas got going inside a little bit. But they actually had a couple runs inside before that happened. So I felt like that was sort of the back and forth. I felt like that game was all in all an overreaction to Taylor Green instead of sort of trying to play him straight up and be who you are. And I feel like the number is
I don't blame him, by the way. Taylor Green's scary.
Fair. I feel like the number is a little bit of an overreaction to the Arkansas game because Tennessee's been pretty good this year.
I don't disagree. So they've played close games too, though. So I'm not that surprised. Every game they've played has kind of come down to the wire. So if they're anticipating, a close game, I think that's understandable.
You probably look at it as maybe Alabama attacking one on late if you think that that's the better team and they're going to get the win.
Yeah, I think Bama. Bama's probably been a little more predictable the last couple weeks. But yeah, I think the number's pretty high relative to what I think most people would have thought it would have been going into this game, or if this game were played 2 weeks ago.
Alabama is a 7.5-point favorite at home against Tennessee, 6:30 p.m. on ABC. Now, I'm not going to be able to watch it, but I can tell you this, and this goes for last weekend also, getting Auburn and Georgia at night again, really cool. Getting Tennessee, Bama at night again, really cool. Because I feel like those two games, very few times in the last, 20 years have we had them at night. They have, I know there was a doubleheader, CBS, Bama, Tennessee at night, maybe once or twice. They end at night a little bit. There maybe been one or two other Auburn, Georgia games at night, but mostly these have been jammed in at 2:30. And I remember, when I was growing up, some of the better Tennessee, Alabama games that I watched were at night. And so, not saying it needs to be there every year. Not saying there's anything wrong with 2:30, but it's just cool that we get some of these bigger traditional rivalry games at night after they had been jammed at 2:30 for such a long time.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that you can get a better environment than SEC at night. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers.
Especially this one. I mean, this is...
Well, this one's a great one, but look at the numbers over the last I don't know, 7 weeks in television. ABC is absolutely dominating in numbers. How watchable was the Auburn-Georgia game?
I feel like I did not consume it live, but I feel like it would have been very watchable.
It was watchable, but it was also hard to watch. Like, it was watchably hard to watch. Okay. That number was 400,000 viewers more than Indiana, Oregon.
You're saying because one team had 40 yards in the second half, it wasn't consumable?
How about one team had 20 yards in the first half?
What's wrong? I don't see the problem.
Well, 20 yards before the final drive that gave him 48.
Sounds like a dynamic game to me.
I thought it was an entertaining game, but I'm a sicko. So answer me this, though. I mean, you look at the numbers. Imagine being CBS right now and or Fox and or NBC. NBC has Michigan and USC at night last week. And Auburn, Georgia beats it by a couple mil. How do you think that feels? Good? Why? Because these SEC environments are insane and people are captivated by them. And part of the reason why is because they're at night. Having these games at night matters. With all due respect to the Fox Big Noon package, it's better at night. It's a better scene at night.
There's no doubt.
So, yes, I'm with you 100%. I think it's going to be incredible.
As football season moves on, you know that changes in the weather are coming. Protect your HVAC system with a checkup from a trained comfort specialist. So when the cold weather hits, you'll have peace of mind that you're protected by America's most reliable and trusted brand. Find a comfort specialist near you at Trane.com. And remember, it's hard to stop a train. Get to a break, come back, and continue to break down some of this weekend's games next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is 7:20 Wednesday, October 15th, right here on Jocks. You can listen online, jocksfm.com. The app is in your app store. iPhone, Android, download it for free. Listen on the go. And don't forget about YouTube. Search Jocks945. You can watch us live on YouTube or go back and watch the show each and every day. Please subscribe to that Jocks YouTube page. If you do, go check it out and put it on in the house or the office every morning. We always appreciate that. And if you're at the house, just moving around, you can tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jock skill and listen that way.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC dealer of the year, the national champion of GMC dealers. Take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll understand why. Like a GMC Sierra 2500. This is a beautiful truck. I actually have a buddy that has this truck. He can't pull out of a driveway, but it's a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. It's amazing. And when you look at just how nice this truck is, I think it's my dream truck, if you want me to be completely honest. $89,000 and change is what you'd pay elsewhere. At Bill Smith, you're going to take $12,000 off that sticker price, which to me is an incredible deal. You're just not finding that deal anywhere else. $77,715 is what you'll pay at Bill Smith. Dream truck, nicest truck on the road, the utility of a heavy duty, and the luxury of a high-end vehicle because of that Denali package. Take the short drive to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at Bill Smith Buick, GMC.com.
All right, so we were talking a little bit of Alabama, Tennessee coming up this weekend, and Willie Martinez, who is the Tennessee secondary coach, was asked about facing Alabama and some of the commentary that has been circulating recently.
I don't read what's being said. That'd be the first time, I've heard it. I'm sure that they probably listen to stuff like that, or it's out there in the social media. We just care about how we prepare. We know that our opponent's, a good team. Obviously, everybody that we play is really good, and they're going to be ready for us. We just got to be our best when we play them, and they got great receivers. We know that. We faced them last year. They got a couple other guys too that are doing a really good job, and a quarterback that's hot. Simpson's doing a really great job of managing the offense and being very productive. So we've got to do a good job again on those early downs. Trying to get them behind the sticks to force the third down and longs, and be efficient and the best we can.
Let me find this. Hold on. The first part of that was him responding. I got to go back and see it where I sent it. The first part of that was him responding to, apparently Jeremy Bernard called it a field of dreams to face Tennessee's defense man-to-man.
I mean, that's a hilarious quote.
All right, how much man-to-man do you think Alabama will get this weekend? I know they in the past they had played that a lot, Greg, but this is
no.
First off, you're not going to get a ground and pound led offense. They have gotten to it a little bit at times. And two, I just think based on the injuries that Tennessee's had in the secondary, you're not going to get a ton of that. We didn't think we were going to get a lot versus Georgia either, and then first play of the game, safety blitz from depth, man-to-man down the sideline, and it's already not going your way. So I would not imagine that Tennessee wants to live in man against this offense with how Ty Simpson's playing and the weapons that they're going to have on the perimeter.
They're not going to. They don't play man anymore. Not with what they have going on right now. Not with what they have going on right now in the back end. And they have challenges at corner. I mean, Colton Hood's fine, but on the other side, you got true freshmen. Back up to them is true freshmen. They got a lot of youth out there. The best thing for them right now is to kind of stay in hope the defensive line can contain, take all the pressure off the back end by playing soft quarters, and hope your guys can come up and tackle. I think that's the ticket. Now, I also, if I'm Tim Banks, I know he's a heavy pressure guy, or at least would like to be at his core, but not sure. Not sure I expect a lot of man coverage from Tennessee at any point moving forward.
Not with the injuries they've had, and again, I think from a matchup perspective, you have to be smart. But like you said, Tim Banks wants to bring that pressure. That's kind of where he's always been, and usually guys don't get away from who they are at their core.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the matchup is or how it dictates itself. Like, how many games are you going to go into and say Blake Baker's not bringing pressure? I mean, it's just
this one might
what
be.
he does.
This one might be one. This could be the best time where Blake Baker won't bring pressure ever. He could run quarters probably the entire week. That's what it's looking like, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, I talked to him about it last week, and because you and I had the conversation of him going to quarters against more mobile quarterbacks, but then you see Harold Perkins standing over the center, and you got Weeks lined up in the B gap. I mean, he's at least going to show it, and at times it's still going to be there. Some of that, too, Greg, depends on where you get the game, and that was so advantageous for Baker last weekend against South Carolina, the LSU defensive coordinator, to be able to say, we hope you have to go to the drop back game to try to beat us. Like Blake Baker told us two things. This is like what we need to take away from maybe his philosophy and then people defending South Carolina moving forward. He said, Cole, these are the two things we want to do. Yeah. We want Lenore Sellers to stay in the pocket and beat us as a quarterback, and we want him to hand the football off.
You don't say.
Which makes perfect sense. I just don't think a lot of people look at it that way and think about it. And essentially what he's saying is, whatever it takes to not have Lenore Sellers be the ball carrier, we don't want that. Now, Lenore Sellers had a combined distance tracked over 800 yards, but he only had 22 gained on the ground. So I would say mission accomplished for Blake Baker. But a lot of that, too, was LSU got a little bit of a lead late. South Carolina had to play catch-up, and that's the same thing you want to do to Vanderbilt. If you can get Vanderbilt playing from behind, like Tyler Watts told us on the show a couple of weeks ago, as soon as Bama went up 14, you knew they were in pretty good shape because Diego Pavia doesn't want to live in – well, he actually probably does, but – his staff doesn't want him living in drop back, having to throw the ball around, play comeback, 2-minute offense.
Right. That's not who he is. That's not who he wants to be. But I would also go as far as to say, when you take into account what Blake Baker does and how Blake Baker's going to try to attack, I think you have to be very careful when playing against a guy like Diego Pavia, because he can break you down. He breaks tackles. A free hitter is not going to scare him. It's not going to affect him. And Blake Baker's going to want to play a decent amount of man. Like, he's going to want to play a lot of man. You know what kills man? Tight ends. You know who's a good tight end? Eli Stowers. So I think that's of concern too. I'm almost compelled to say, hey, look, let's put Mansour Delane on Stowers in the slot. Like, that'll neutralize our biggest headache in the passing attack. And while I like their guys on the outside, I think they're actually quite good on the outside at wide receiver. I think it'd make a lot of sense to approach it that way. I don't think they'll do it, but it would make sense if that's how they came out and structured their defense.
Do you think they've targeted Stowers enough this year?
I don't think they're probably not. I mean, you can always come out of a game and say, man, I wish we would have got more looks.
Yeah, I've left a couple of games thinking that.
But there's also been so many games in which every single team you talk to, like we talked to Bama, is like, all right, what's the APB? It's like Stowers. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I'm imagining every single team's going into it like, all right, hey, we got to stop Stowers come hell or high water, whatever it takes. That's what we'll do. And I haven't watched every game super close, but I'm guessing that's how they've approached it up to this point.
All right, we're going to turn the page, begin talking a little bit of college basketball. SEC men's basketball media days are today, and Stephen Pearl is going to be making the rounds. He'll join us first, though, the new Auburn head basketball coach, with us right after this on Jocks. All right, SEC tip-off begins today, SEC men's basketball media days. Every coach, every player from every team will be at the podium on the SEC network. You'll hear from Stephen Pearl there, but you'll hear him here now as he joins us on the Higginbotham Hotline, first-year Auburn head basketball coach. We just want to hear first, Stephen, how this whirlwind, how's it been the last, I guess, month and a half, just kind of taking over this program, making it your own a little bit? And I'm sure it's been a lot to deal with. I'm sure it's been busy, but how's it been for you?
Been good. Appreciate you guys having me on. Some moments you're drinking out of a fire hose, but I think one of the advantages for me, guys, is I was able to kind of watch BP do it for 30 years. So I kind of knew, what I was getting into as far as the day-to-day. But the transition's been smooth. Our guys, obviously when the news broke, it was a difficult situation for everyone involved because obviously, everybody loves BP and, what's best for BP. But as every day went by, our guys were resilient. Our guys, just continued to pour into what we were doing on the basketball floor. And, we've had a ton of buy-in. And obviously our guys are just really excited that they finally get to stop beating the crap out of each other and play somebody else tonight, which is, going to be a great test for us.
It's got to be. And I think, look, a lot of us just assume you're going to be so much like your dad. However, knowing both of y'all, very different personalities. I would imagine maybe there's different philosophies. I have no idea. But how do you plan on kind of differentiating yourself from BP and kind of putting your own fingerprints on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that, I get a lot, and, it's not a popular answer, but, if you look at, what we've done over the last 11 years, the staff that we have in place right now, Mike Burgomaster's been here for close to 10, Ira Bowman's been here for 8, Ian Borders has been here for 8. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing on the offensive and defensive ends is stuff that the staff has really, helped BP grow and elevate from his days at Tennessee. So as far as what we're doing on the floor, Greg, I'm not going to change a lot because what we've done is delivered a ton of success and a ton of results. How I approach things is obviously, different from BP. I'm way more data-driven. I'm way more analytical. It's, a pretty popular trend amongst younger coaches nowadays. Whereas BP obviously was, a little more old school and, just kind of had a feel for things. So, when you're watching the games, I don't think you're going to look at me and think I'm going to have a heart attack every possession, kind of like BP did when he was out there on the floor. So I think I'll have my demeanor, I think, needs to be a little more calm because I think my players will look at me and see how I'm reacting to the flow of the game or, maybe a bad call or anything like that. And, my body language will rub off on their body language. So I think, when it comes to the flow of the game, guys making mistakes, I'm going to try and be way more even-keeled, but when it comes to effort and energy, they understand that that's one area that they're going to let me, really get after them and coach them. So I think on the floor I won't be as animated on the sidelines, and then my approach to things is going to be a little bit different. But as far as what we're doing, we're going to do a lot of the same.
Stephen Pearl, Auburn head basketball coach, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You mentioned players. I'm intrigued to hear, because I feel like this could go a lot of different ways, what the message had to be, the conversation needed to be with the players after the announcement was made. I mean, was this you had to go re-recruit the roster? Were these difficult conversations, easy conversations? Because obviously you kept that roster intact, which is great. But what was that like, having to sit down and talk to guys? Because you mentioned the staff didn't change. Not a lot of philosophy is going to change, but obviously the head coach changed. What were those conversations like?
Well, you guys understand locker rooms better than anyone, and I'm not going to share details of what those conversations were, but I can tell you the first thing we told our guys when the announcement was made was, listen, you all have 30 days from right now to decide if you guys want to go somewhere else. We told you in the recruiting process that we were going to do what was best for you, what was best for your family, and we're going to continue to support that. So if you do want to leave Auburn, we are going to support you in that journey. We're going to help you find a landing spot. Obviously, we want all of you to stay. You guys came here. We made a promise to you guys that we were going to help develop you not only on the floor, but off the floor and continue to add to that 48 graduates we've had since 2014. But, they weren't really expecting that, I think. And I think they appreciated the honesty from the staff, in being so open to them exploring their options. So I honestly, like, the conversations weren't as difficult as I thought they were going to be. I think a big reason for that is Auburn is obviously, as you guys know, it's a special place. And our guys have a lot of, I mean, even though they've just been here since June 1, that, they're invested and they have roots in Auburn right now. And I'm amazed by how quickly this team got along over the summer and the amount of time they spent together. So I think the combination of Auburn being a special place, the relationships they have with their teammates, but then obviously the relationships they have with the coaching staff that helped recruit them to Auburn ultimately led all 12 scholarship players to tell us that they were coming back to continue to finish what we talked about, for the last, couple months.
It probably didn't hurt that you basically recruited them all too, right? Like, I mean, like at the core of their decision-making process, like you were probably 90% of the reason, I would imagine, the relationship you struck up. Is that accurate?
No, I'm gonna continue to give credit to our staff. While I was involved in a lot of the recruitment, like, our staff is the strength of our program, and the continuity and the retention of the guys that we've had has been such an important piece of bringing in the players that we've brought. So my individual relationships were obviously great with our guys, but if you look at Ira Bowman and Mike Burgomaster and Corey Williams and Ian Borders, Marquise Daniels, like, all those guys had unbelievable relationships already established with our players, which ultimately I think, was a big reason why they all felt like this was the best decision to come back and continue to be a part of this group.
Stephen, go ahead.
How do you anticipate this roster looking different? Obviously, with so much turnover, you lose such great personnel with Janai and Cardwell and just a handful of others that played at a high level for you. It feels like Tahad Pettiford's kind of going to be the backbone of what you want to be. I know you have a lot of new additions, but how do you anticipate the style changing this year after losing such length and size down on the block this past season?
Yeah, this group's going to have to play faster because, if you look at when you see us out there, we're not nearly as big as we were a year ago. Obviously Janai Broom and Dylan Cardwell were two physical just specimens. Chaney Johnson as well. But when you look at, our wings, we have great size on the wings. We have great size at our 4. Our 5s are very mobile and athletic. It's going to look, as far as the team makeup, it's going to look a lot like, the 2019 team as far as our makeup. We're not as small as at the 1 and 2. We have a little more size at those positions. But as far as the speed that we got to play with on both ends of the floor, we're going to play with a lot more tempo and a lot more pace. We're going to push the ball in transition offensively. If we don't have anything early, we're going to get into one of our sets and run something late. But then defensively, we're going to have to create more turnovers, because last year our team was so big and so long that we were able to just kind of build a wall and force teams into taking tough contested jump shots. And then we had the luxury of great size to go rebound the basketball. This year, we don't have that as much. We have good size and we have good length. We're just not as physical as we were a year ago. So we got to create more turnovers, create some offense from our defense, and then try and get out in transition and take advantage of the 9 or 10 guys that we're going to be able to play every single night and kind of run people down.
I can recall when I was at the camp with you and your dad, BP was talking about a couple different roles individually or a couple different facets of their games, guys who were on the roster last year that are going to be on the roster this year that they're just going to have to not only be better at, but maybe just different at. And not that they couldn't do it a year ago, but just weren't asked to. Like, I can recall him telling me, like, Tahad has had to work on his floaters because of the size that you mentioned, how it's going to be different. Like, that's going to be a big shot for him this year. Is there an aspect of any of these guys that they've specifically been working on that you're kind of excited to see a different portion of how they play on the floor this year?
Well, I don't know if our audience saw the videos, but if any of our guys could dunk as well as you do, Cole, I think we're going to have a phenomenal year this year. So I've been really showing film of that every day, just being like, you guys, we got to have
it's good that you guys are going to be playing on
intensity.
8-foot goals. That's going to help you a lot, I promise.
No, I mean, Tahad's a great example. He's going to have a target on his back. He's going to be the center of every scouting report. So his whole thing is, last year he was a sixth man on the best team in the country for 90% of the season, probably our 4th best player as a freshman, which is incredibly impressive. But he didn't have the best player guarding him every single night. Well, that's going to be the case now. So for him, he's got to get into a mode where obviously he's got to be aggressive scoring the basketball because that's what he's so good at. But he's also got to be able to trust his teammates to be able to make plays when they're sending multiple bodies at him, because that's what's going to happen majority of the season. Keyshawn Hall is another great example of a guy who was the leading scorer in the Big 12 last year. Everyone knows how talented Keyshawn is and his ability to put the ball on the rim. But he came to Auburn because he wanted to develop his defensive side of the ball and, show that he's a winner. So defensively, Keyshawn's really going to have to step up. And also another guy that's got to trust his teammates because, in years past, he's been the main guy. He's got more talent around him now. So he's been really working on that and, working to facilitate the ball and help get his teammates involved. So those are two guys that I think, have had to work on things that they typically don't work on this summer. But all of our guys, with it being a brand new roster, are all having to do new things that help impact and influence winning.
Well, we appreciate you hopping on today. We're looking forward to having you during the season, catching up on Auburn hoops. Excited to watch you guys in this Auburn team. Enjoy it today. Should be low stress and simple all day today. Just make your rounds there, and it'll be easy.
Awesome, fellas. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen Pearl, Auburn head basketball coach, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline before SEC tip-off today over in Mountain Brook. You'll be able to catch up on all that on the SEC Network all day. They'll be replaying it. You'll hear from all the coaches, players, and what they feel like their team is going to be. G-Mac, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's has been serving this community for nearly 200 years. Its deals are just incredible, and they have a great deal going on this week at Bromberg's. It's the Jalisco week. So if you're thinking about hosting here in the fall, maybe doing some holiday hosting, you can shop beautiful new Jalisco pieces and classic favorites while enjoying fantastic savings for 1 week only. So brides, if you're registered and you had some credit, go and grab it. Fellas, if you know that you're registered, it's a great gift. Foolproof gift idea. I got a birthday coming up in our household. Might need to swing over there and grab a beautiful piece of Jalisco because they have dinnerware, linens, glassware. It brings beauty and joy to every gathering. So whether you're hosting the season or you're looking for the perfect gift, there's no better time to add that timeless piece to your collection at Bromberg's. Stop by Bromberg's and add some joy to your home with Jalisco.
All right. If you're heading over there to check out SEC tip-off at the Grand Bohemian, head down the street, stop by Bromberg's.
There you go.
On your
Go
way
get
out
some
of town.
Jalisco.
Go check that out.
Dial it up.
When we come back, we return to college football next on Jocks. You can be a part of the show. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 800-239-WJOX. 7:48 Wednesday, October 15th, right here on Jocks. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Appreciate Stephen Pearl stopping by before he makes the rounds at SEC tip-off today at the Grand Bohemian in Mountain Brook. You can catch all that on the SEC Network. All the coaches, players will be on set at some point in time. It is becoming portal season, I guess. Now that the 4 games are out of the way for most people and they have to make that decision, Texas running back Jarek Gibson, no longer with the team, intends to hit the transfer portal. And Alabama wide receiver Bubba Hampton intends to enter the transfer portal. He'll have 3 years of eligibility, 4-star recruit, GMAC, a crowded wide receiver room. So
Hadn't seen the tape.
Don't know exactly what he was giving them, but not super surprising that some guys are going to move on when you're not getting the snaps that you desire.
That's fair.
That's the way that it goes at some places. We don't love it, but unfortunately,
I think it's the
where we
right
are.
call. Like, why would you keep him on the team? Like, go now. You get no more NIL. You can go and sit, and hopefully your high school tape can help you.
Right call for the individual, though?
No, I think it's dumb.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculously crazy. Like, practice makes you better, or so I've been told.
Yeah, that's debatable.
Ah,
Yeah, obviously. You need reps. If you want to play, you got to get reps. And we've seen this with Tamari Alston at Auburn, now Jarek Gibson at Texas, Bubba Hampton at Alabama, amongst other places where guys are making that decision now to just go ahead and enter the transfer portal. Tennessee ran 43 times for 214 yards last year against Alabama. As we mentioned, that rushing attack for the Vols, and does it get going? How does it get going? Is it better suited against this offense? Is this Tennessee team better suited to be able to run the football? I think they may be just a slight notch ahead of last year. GMAC, I think they're a little more fundamentally sound on the offensive line. The tight ends have had an extra year to get acclimated to how they want them to operate in that offense.
yes.
And I don't know if you get as much from the quarterback runs. Not that Aguilar's afraid to tuck it and go, but
No.
he can make you respect it, but not going to be maybe as dangerous of picking up as many as Nico was when he was in that offense.
No, I think he's not a runner. Like, I mean, I think he has some mobility, but he's not really a runner. So you got to account for his legs, but he's not really a guy that is going to scare you to death from that vantage point. We'll be kind of curious to see how things go as the season progresses to see if there's more there in the run game. But you think about it, man, you could in theory play 10 more games. And I've come across a fascinating stat as it relates to Tennessee. Do you realize right now that their defense is averaging having to defend 77 offensive snaps a game?
I hope you have bodies.
77 offensive snaps a game.
I would ask, how different is that from a year ago?
I have no idea. It just feels like a lot. Does
I
it
want to
not?
say I recall Josh saying something similar to us about that last year.
Yeah,
And when you look at Tennessee's rush defense,
right.
last year it did begin to fall off. Now some of this is going to be level of competition, but they didn't give up a 100-yard rusher until October the 5th last year. And then you went 137, 138, 75, 168, 179. They held UTEP to 81, but after playing Alabama, who they held to 75 yards rushing last year, it was over 100 the rest of the way, over 150 twice. So it didn't take a massive dip, but it did begin to fall off a little bit later, with Mississippi State going for 179 and Ohio State going for 156. So it didn't look as though that was a big problem last year. Now, keep in mind, they were rolling, basically three waves of defensive linemen in last year. So
Yeah.
that was a huge advantage.
No, you're right.
And didn't have the early DB injuries that they've had this year. So
That's all true.
it's fair to keep an eye on that and how that might affect this team moving forward.
Yeah. And I also know that it might not be that way forever. Hopefully it's not, but that is a tough formula to replicate. So I think you're going to see more leaning on the run, heavier emphasis on trying to maybe not drive your defense into the dirt. If the ultimate goal is to get to the playoff and be in one piece, maybe there's some aspects of that will help them. And look, maybe they also know, hey, we got to win some shootouts. We got to win some scoreathons. We're going to have to win some track meets. And that's fine, but that's not an easy recipe to replicate every week without having a game or two in which your offense isn't totally dialed in
You
and
said
prepared to score 50.
You said they don't want to drive their defense where?
End of the date. End of the date.
Your CBD store, if you're having issue sleeping, if you're having issue maybe with weight loss, you want to get some of the pounds off, the Trim by SunMed in the stock now at the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. They have all the Lion's Mane product in now. You can go check those out, see different things that they can do for you. If it's taking the edge off at night, if it's better focused throughout the course of the day, more energy throughout the course of the day, skincare, gut health for you or your pet, arthritis, anxiety for you or your pet, your CBD store has answers to all of those issues, and they're located right there on Highway 280 next to Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustful just off 459. Great customer service. They are open. Everything's still for sale. Don't believe everything you see on the news about the other places.
Ooh.
Your CBD store where good health hits home. Chris has a question about today's college football. Welcome into the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. How's it going this
Great.
morning? I want to talk about something you guys brought up in the off season, what we get out of the season, and up to now when it comes to fan expectations and how over unnecessary they are, as well as overreactions.
I don't know if they're necessarily unnecessary. They're wonderful. But I also think we need to adjust to the new world order and accepting the idea that an 8-4, 9-3 is a pretty good year, whether you want to acknowledge that or not.
Yes, I've been saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And even now, when it came to overreactions, when you think about it, right, family, everyone's saying, Rick, saying, if you feel so bad, if you feel so upset about it, fork up the money for the buyout. And now all of a sudden, now everybody talks about Bama being in the SEC championships now within 5 weeks ago. And I was like it's so. I was everybody else sort of up in arms, and I've been on the record saying, hey, if you guys feel how you feel when I give me your tickets, I'll go. And all of a sudden now the switch up is just crazy to me. Like, are we fully invested in fandom, or are we just talking out our ear? What are we doing?
Oh, it's listen. Fan is short for fanatic, Chris, and people are going to overreact. Part of it too. You look at early in the season. I'm not saying that anything that came out from a negative perspective about Alabama after Florida State was warranted, but you did only have one game to react to, and as you moved ahead, now you have multiple games to react to, and things have been totally different. So it's hard for people to take a small sample size of one thing and say, I'm not going to truly react to that until I get more, because that's the only thing that you have in front of you.
Right.
Now, a lot of teams have presented themselves as better than we thought, worse than we thought, even after we saw a game or two or three of them. Is our perception of Texas a lot different than it was a week ago? Mine is. It's, we tried to say it earlier in the year, like we're not going to freak out and overreact to certain things because it's going to be different than it's been before. It just is. It's going to be harder to figure things out. Look at Ohio State last year. All right, back with more next right here on Jocks.